phone lines to be quite busy.
We sure do. And we also want to explore how guns relate to us as Catholic Christians.
Yeah.
What is our responsibility? I mean, should we be for it, against it, somewhere in between? And that's why we really want to have this discussion and explore every angle. So, okay, here we go. We're opening up the phone lines. We know they're going to fill up rather quickly because social media is a great example of that overnight. You guys just set that on fire. So 1-800-585-9396 to share your take on this topic of guns. And we want to keep this in mind, okay? We really want to explore all the different angles and logically approach this, not emotionally approach this, but logically approach it as well. So 1-800-585-9396.
Yeah, and Debbie and I are going to welcome Father Mitch Pacwa to our program today. He'll be with us the entire hour. Father is at EWTN, the host of EWTN Live, Open Line, Threshold of Hope. Father Mitch, it's good to have you with us on the show today. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How y'all doing?
Hey, we're doing great.
Good.
We are.
Good.
Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Looking forward to some lively discussions here. 1-800-585-9396. What is your take, dear listener, on guns? Again, should we own guns? I know a lot of people who have concealed weapons permits. A lot of people are just totally against any sort of gun ownership. Of course, you got the government and lots of agencies working to, for strict gun control, which would kind of take guns out of the hands of everybody. So, and Father Mitch, let's start with, I guess Pope Francis has actually addressed the issue of guns quite a number of times recently.
He's recently he's got two statements. One when he was at Turin to go see the shroud a couple of months ago, about 3-4 months ago, and then of course at Congress. When he spoke to our Congress, he focused on the gun trade with the third world countries that have a variety of guerrilla wars. That was his point. He does not want the large nations to be engaged in selling weapons to poor countries where there are these little wars going on and causing horrendous devastation. Somalia, West Africa, there are wars over diamonds, and militias that are wreaking devastation. And of course, we've got people like Islamists like Boko Haram, ISIS, and so on. And there's a concern about getting guns to them, as well as the issue of these weapons shows that demonstrate all the newest weapons. So that's one issue. And that was also what he brought up when he was in Turin. He said it makes me think of people, managers, businessmen who call themselves Christian and they manufacture weapons. That leads to a bit of a distrust, doesn't it? Now, in this, he's again talking about those manufacturers that sell weapons to these various wars around the world, that are especially in poor nations, where instead of building up the means of production, they are building up means of destruction. In Somalia, for instance, to help finance the Islamist wars among various gangs of people in Somalia. It's not, the whole country is 100% Muslim. So it's various Muslim gangs fighting other Muslim gangs. It's not a religious war as such, though some are more radicalized in their Islam than others. And they are using rocket-launched grenades to kill elephants, leave the meat, and sell the ivory. Now, this is absurd, and horrendous for everybody. And people who are living in poor countries have the wealth, what little wealth they have in their nation, going off to buy weapons that destroy them. That's been the focus when he spoke in Turin as well as in Congress. So that's one thing. And also, Jerry, I hope you don't mind, but just in terms of being upfront, I am someone who I've gotten permission to have a number of guns because I primarily for hunting. I hunt and I use a bow and arrow during bow season, but in some game I can't do that. I use a gun. So that's something else, and that the Pope is not talking about hunting here or any of that issue. So that's a separate and distinct issue.
Right. Father Mitch, let me ask you this question. What does the Pope say about private gun ownership? I mean, how does he feel about, law-abiding citizens having a gun, securely in their home to protect themselves, from those criminals that could have illegally have gotten a gun?
He hasn't said anything about that. Catholic teaching, you see it in the Catechism, permits self-defense and defense of your family and of helpless people. That is not contrary to our faith or morals. So that you don't have to do self-defense, but you may, and that is something that has always been allowed. That Christians, if somebody breaks into your home, that you may defend your family from an attack. So self-defense is not something that is prohibited.
This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN. We are talking about guns, gun ownership, gun control. Is it the guns that kill people? Is it people with guns that kill people? What is our Catholic stance on this? What does the Catechism say? We'd love to hear your takes on this. If you're a gun owner and you feel strongly about that, 1-800-585-9396. If you are maybe staunchly against people having guns, 1-800-585-9396. Tell you what, we have a break queued up and ready to go. We'll have Rich roll that for us right now. And when we come back, we'll start with your phone calls. Carol in Beaverton, Oregon, you will be first. We have Father Mitch Pacwa of EWTN on the program with us today. And remember, your takes drive this program. 1-800-585-9396. Also, Facebook has just been going crazy with comments. We'll share some of those as we go through today's program on EWTN.
"60 Seconds" with Mother Angelica.
You can be too generous. For example, if a man comes home with his paycheck and say he's just got $100, he's got 5 children, he's got rent, gas, and electric to pay, and he sees a poor man there, and he gives him the whole $100. And you say, oh, God's going to reward him. But see, the gas and electric company aren't going to think that way. That man was too generous. Now you say, well, how could he be too generous? He has his family to think about. He has his rent to pay. These are just debts and just obligations. Now he could have given part of that, but to throw away all of it is to use a virtue to an excess. Now you can do that with virtues. You can do that with any good thing.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
Hello, this is Archbishop Joseph Tobin of the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. You're listening to EWTN, the Global Catholic Radio Network.
Thanks for staying with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. We're talking about guns today, and our guest is Father Mitch Pacwa, and we are so blessed to have him the whole entire hour. And your calls are coming in very fast, and I know Matt Gabinski's doing a great job, talking to everyone and making sure that they can get on to Take Two. But real quickly, before we jump to Carol in Beaverton, Oregon, I just wanted to just ask Father Mitch this one last thing. Father Mitch, when I see these reports on TV about how when somebody is killed. First of all, I just want to state my brother-in-law was killed by a gun. And it was, and dear listeners, you could Google the story or internet search the story. It's Doug Giorgiani. It was the photo radar worker in Arizona, and the story was on the media for many, many days. And he was killed, shot in the chest several times, and he died. But however, I still, Father Mitch, I strongly have this problem, and I hope that you can help me and all the other listeners, because I still have this problem with this idea that, all gun ownership and all guns are bad. And I struggle with this thought of a criminal walking down my neighborhood who has been able to obtain a gun illegally, and then knowing full well that if we enforce all this strict gun ownership, that he's probably walking down a street where all of us in the neighborhood are defenseless. We have no guns. So to me, there's a problem with the balance there, or can you help us with that? Because I struggle with that.
Yeah, this is a very difficult situation, and this is a different situation than what Pope Francis was addressing in the manufacturing of guns for these various wars. We have this problem, and I must say, again, to be upfront, I witnessed the murder of a friend of mine. We were just standing on the street, and people were actually, there was another gang that was looking to kill one of my friends, and they made him kneel down, they shot him through the head, and they beat me up. But then another a relative I loved dearly was babysitting, and two boys wanted to rape her, and they stabbed her to death. They didn't use a gun. They didn't need to. And so the issue is that there are quite a few murders by guns and other blunt instruments, by guns and by knives and other blunt instruments, clubs and baseball bats, things like that. Guns seem to be predominant, but this. In fact, with mass murderers, knives are more common, and 22s. Those are the two weapons of choice for most mass murderers, because they're more quiet. That they can't keep doing the murders. John Wayne Gacy primarily used knives and things like that. That this is something that we have to deal with, the right to protect ourselves. Now, that requires training. The states do not give concealed weapon permits willy-nilly. These are there are courses you not only have to take but pass. And in most states, hunter education and gun safety education are required before you get a hunting license. Mm-hmm. That's pretty normal, because guns are dangerous, and you want to make sure that you follow the gun safety rules when you're doing something like hunting, but also in your house. To have a gun safe and gun locks, etc. Those are very important. But it is a right to be able to defend yourself and your family. And Chicago is a classic example where there are no gun dealers or ammunition dealers in the city. They don't exist there.
I'll bet there are lots of guns and ammunition.
Well, see, that's it. That's the problem. And, the honest citizens can't get them, but other people who are acting criminally do, and they use them a lot. And Chicago had 49 shootings just a couple days ago, despite the prohibition of having guns. You can't have them. But
wow.
It's the bad people do. And
Well,
so this is one of the situations that we're dealing with in a society that is not ridden so much with guns, but has another twofold problem. That one, of course, is the drug trade that is certainly underlying not only the violence, but also taking away the ability of the criminals to have a conscience. Drugs control their reasoning process, not reasoning. They don't think through the values that would limit them. And so that's one factor. A second factor that is probably even more important is the absence of family. We're just about now 50% of all children are born to unwed parents. And as a result, that is the number one indicator as to whether there'll be poverty. Number one indicator of poverty, the failure to finish school, the likelihood of the girls of unwed parents to become unwed mothers, 60% of them, and the also of criminality. A lot of people don't realize this, but between 80 and 85% of all inmates in prison are the children of unmarried parents. Usually absent fathers, sometimes both parents are absent. So this is a horrendous, and that is far more to deal with the cause of the violence. The weapons of choice and the weapons available are another question.
Yeah. Father Mitch Pacwa with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. I was going to say even some of those things, Father, and we got to get to the calls here, but just one little tag onto that. We hear about these school shootings and all, and, the rifles don't walk into the school themselves and start shooting kids. It's kids who, like you said, may be from troubled backgrounds. They're on some sort of drugs or medications, or they're playing violent video games. I mean, they've lost a sense of right and wrong. And that's a real key in all of this. But we've got a lot of people holding here for Father Mitch Pacwa. So we're going to start with Carol in Beaverton, listening on Mater Dei Radio. Carol, thanks for your patience. You called real early in the show. You are up first. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you for having me on. And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
appreciate all what you're doing. We lost a young family member a year or so ago. My nephew Colby died. He was entertaining his friends with his new handgun, which was a semi-automatic weapon. He thought he would hand the gun over to his best friend to show it off. He disengaged the cartridge out to get the bullets out of the gun before he handed it off. And in the proper manner, he handed it butt first, and the gun went off and killed him. Yeah. And we've been so saddened by the loss of our dear Colby, and he, 20 years old, had the life ahead of him, was a future Farmers of America, was smart, had the gun training behind him. He was an avid hunter with his brothers and his uncles, etc., and made just one error by not realizing this semi-automatic gun was going to release a bullet in the chamber, and he did not look for the extra bullet, and ended up dying in the ER that evening, I guess.
I'm sure that's devastating for his friend, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, the friend ended up having to go to jail that shot the bullet because it was he was not
It
a
was
minor.
careless discharge of a weapon.
Yeah, and so the last I heard from my brother was that he ended up having to spend some time in jail over some just what they call was a casual entertainment. And I thought, why should this gun even have been available for him to even be entertaining his friends with? The people that have the masters in IPSC and respect for this type of gun, yes, people in security and the police and, protection agencies, etc. But I'm thinking, the 22 are obviously, a weapon of choice for mass murderers, but these young men that want to hunt and shoot and stuff, find respect for them. But, having something that is meant to kill, why is that on the market? Why should these young men be able to even get their hands on these guns?
Well,
That's
do
my
you know
question.
Do you know what caliber that was?
I would have to double check with my brother on that.
Because the answer to your question is that first of all, a .22 is a very deadly pistol or rifle, because the bullet is so small that when it enters into either the cranium or into the thoracic cage on a body, it can bounce around and tear up the organs. Even though it's a small caliber, it does tremendous damage if it ricochets off of bones. And that's one of the ways that it kills. Secondly, having a larger caliber is sometimes necessary for hunting. For instance, when you're hunting, you sometimes have to deal with there being predators. And if, for instance, a rifle may miss a predator for a wolf or a bear or something.
A cougar.
And cougar. I know you have a lot of the cougar population has increased tremendously in Oregon, and having a pistol is necessary because you can get a number of shots off, hopefully to scare it off. But if it's not scared, then you have to be able to bring it down to protect yourself. Hunting wild boar, same thing. You want to have a decent caliber pistol in case you get attacked by the boar. So that's something that is, that's why you would have that a larger caliber, 45 or something like that. I don't know what your nephew had. So, there's a reason to have it for hunting, but it is never a toy. It is always something that has to be treated with the utmost respect, as you would any dangerous tool. And that's the way we have to look at it, as a potentially very dangerous tool. You don't use dangerous tools lightly, and you don't use guns lightly.
All right, Carol, we got a break coming up here, so we're going to pray for Colby and for you and for all of your family, for the other young man involved in this, for healing for everybody. And God bless you. Thanks for having the courage and taking the time to call into the program today. We appreciate that very much. Again, we've got a hard break coming up here in just about a minute, Debbie, but a lot of other phone calls. This is a very, obviously, a topic that is on the minds and hearts of a lot of people, Deb. So after the break, we're going to get to more phone calls.
Right. We have Father Mitch Pacwa with us. And Father Mitch, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing about concealed weapons permits and how intensive the classes are and how the instructors are very, very diligent in how they teach. My husband and I are both concealed weapons. We have concealed weapons permits, and the class was extremely educational, and it was tough. So I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that. And we're gonna get going to a break right now, and when we come back on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, we're gonna start answering all your calls. There is one open phone line at 1-800-585-9396. Jump in and share your take on guns. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Check out EWTN's official YouTube channel.
Just follow the link on our homepage at EWTN.com or go to YouTube.com/EWTN.
Watch EWTN's live shows or today's homily from the Daily Mass.
Click the upload button to see our most recent clips.
You can also find all of EWTN YouTube content by clicking the playlist button.
It's all on the official EWTN YouTube channel at YouTube.com/EWTN.
Visit today.
One of the most terrifying experiences in life is teaching your teenager to drive. My daughter has this tendency to focus her attention right on the hood of the car. You see, she thinks that by focusing on the car itself, she'll keep it going in the right direction. Of course, there's no surer way to crash. Thankfully, she's slowly getting it. You only get where you want to go by fixing your eyes far ahead of your car. When you do that, you end up steering in the right direction. That's why worship is so important. We need a focal point that's far beyond ourselves to give us perspective and to keep our lives heading in the right direction. That focal point is the majesty and greatness of God. Try starting each day with your favorite worship song. And when you pray, don't just ask for stuff. You might end up more stressed than when you started because you sat in the presence of your problems and forgot the greatness of God. This is Chris Stefanik from reallifecatholic.com.
It's the start of a new day for Morning Catholic Radio.
Your Excellency, this is Gloria. I've just been wondering, are you going to be able to give him any gift from Kentucky? We need to let him know the breadth and beauty of the United States, so any chance you can give him a little token from Kentucky?
There's no whiskey.
Well, you know what though, Brian? It wouldn't be whiskey, it'd be bourbon.
That's right. Tell it. Morning Glory, Catholic from the start. Weekday mornings, 7 Eastern on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Thanks for joining us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and we are talking about guns and gun ownership. Are you for guns, against guns, afraid of guns, think guns are important, want to uphold the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms? I mean, what is your take on this? We really want to explore this, and we have Father Mitch Pacwa with us, and he is really our resident expert on actually the responsible use of guns. And Father Mitch, I just wanted to say before we get to the next call, I know Adam is driving through Indiana. I just want to make sure we get to Adam. But before we get to Adam, Father Mitch, I wanted to say that one of the reasons why my husband and I did take the concealed weapons class is for the sheer purpose of knowing how to responsibly handle a gun, not to be afraid of a gun, and what things to not be afraid of, but understand about the dangerousness of a loaded gun and how to check and everything, similar to what we heard from Carol. So that class really taught me a lot about what happens, because not only do they talk about gun ownership and how to handle a gun, but they talk about all the scenarios that happen when guns are unlocked and all sorts of things. So it's a valuable course. Would you agree with that?
Oh, and so that one of the things that you should always assume is that when you see a gun, you assume it's loaded, and you treat it with respect as if it were loaded. Now, I myself, when I put away a gun, I make sure there's nothing in the chamber. I make sure that there's no bullet in it at all, in the magazine or anything, and I put it away then. Even though I know I do that by habit, even when I take it back out again, I check again to make sure that there is nothing in the chamber. And still, I would never, ever, knowing that there's nothing in there, you never, ever point a gun at anybody for any reason, not goofing around. There is no goofing around with guns. Mm-hmm. These are not toys. So it has to be an attitude of absolutely complete respect. That's how we start off, because you can endanger somebody's life, and that's what we don't want to have happen.
For sure. Great point. Father Mitch Pacwa with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Back to your calls. Again, Adam driving through Indiana. Adam, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Thank you for waiting. How are you today, Adam?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing well, thanks.
Well, is it my turn?
Yes.
Yeah, what's your take?
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say, interesting topic. I did preface the caller, the screener, I am an independent Baptist, so just so you know that. But anyway, I was just talking about guns. We have a God-given right to be free. And when our forefathers put in the Constitution the right to bear arms, it was in there because of the tyranny we had overcome from England. And that right is there so that we can protect ourselves and not be prisoners again and not be ruled in a dictatorship like we were. And so it kind of cracks me up when some people refer to the Second Amendment as, well, it's for hunters. Well,
no, exactly.
When it was written, everybody hunted back then. You didn't go down to your local Kroger store and get meat. And so I always kind of laugh at that. But more so than that, I was telling the screener earlier that guns, the reason we have violence with guns isn't because of guns, it's because it's a heart matter. And, I believe that until you're saved, you're a sinner, and sinners act like sinners. And it's a heart issue, and it doesn't matter if it's guns, it would be knives, and if it wasn't knives, it would be ball bats, and if it wasn't ball bats, it would be something else. And the issue, and you alluded to it earlier, about the family units being totally destroyed and going that way in this country, and I think that is a large, large percentage. It's a cultural thing and it's a spiritual thing, and when we as humans don't acknowledge God for who he is and his commandment in the Bible of thou shalt not kill, meaning you shouldn't shed innocent blood. And I told the screener earlier that I believe God wants us to protect what he has given us, and it is our God-given right to protect what he's given us. And if that means deadly force, then so be it. But when someone, like a criminal, they choose to do wrong, they choose to break the law, they chose to go into someone's house and to hurt them or to take what they have, they have what they have coming to them, and that's a principle that's played out in the Bible. And so, what's your take on that?
Yeah, here's one of the things. I don't want to talk about them getting what they have coming to them. The focus, it's a slight nuance. I understand what you're saying. It's a slight nuance, but if somebody breaks into a home where you are allowed to defend yourself. In a lot of states, for instance, the state of Alabama, if a bandit breaks into your home and then runs out, you may not use deadly force. You may not shoot at them. But if they are inside your home, and this is common in a number of states, then you may shoot at them. And it's not to give them what they have coming to them, but rather to focus on the protection of innocent life from this aggressor. You have to assume that if someone has broken into your home, that this is an aggressive person. You have no idea what they may be up to, and you have the right to protect the lives of innocent people in your home. And I'm not going to worry about giving somebody their due or punishing them. That's not up to me. That punishment or reward is up to God our Lord. But if you enter into a home that you don't belong in, then the people in that home have a moral right to defend themselves against that aggressor. I think maybe a year or so ago, a woman was at home with her children. They were small. A man had broken in. She ran upstairs and called 911, locked the bedroom door. He broke that down. She and the children were in the closet. He was trying to break down the closet door. And at that point, she had a choice of either putting herself and her children at risk of violence at the hands of this man or shooting him. And she shot through the door and I believe wounded him. I don't know if he died or not. But she had a right to do that. And again, it's not to punish him. It is simply to stop the perpetrator from doing something evil. And that would be my sense.
How's that, Adam?
Add that. Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
Anytime people push for gun restrictions or gun laws or taking guns away, it really only hurts the law-abiding citizen who uses them responsibly, because criminals, by definition, don't follow the laws and could care less about whatever laws are put on guns. And this country, it doesn't ever affect the criminals who take guns into places that say, do not bring a firearm in here. They don't adhere to those rules. And so really they're only putting more people in danger when they do that. That's how I feel.
Yeah, it's something that we have to be, again, extremely cautious of, and not pretend that we're in some movie where everybody gets shot up and the good guys win. It's a horrible thing that somebody would invade your house and put you in a position to have to defend your family. But I would rather defend my family than let this person take their innocent lives. And we have so many cases of that going on, and this is something we have to deal with.
Adam, thank you so much for the call. A lot of calls. We're going to get to you. Thank you for your patience. It's just, it's not, and there are so many emotions and things going through. I mean, if someone breaks into your home, you're not going to sit there and go, well, let me see. The odds of this person doing this are 48.2%. And let's see. So if I go, there's just, it's got to be a spur of the moment decision that some people make. And I wanted to mention what Jean said on Facebook. Jean, thank you for your post. Jean says, I am Catholic and firmly believe in God's and our guardian angel's protection over us, but I don't test God. It's nonsense to stand in the middle of the highway at rush hour and say, okay, God, I love and trust you, and think that you won't get run over. We as Catholics know we live in a culture of death. There are many people who do not value life and would take mine or my family member's life with no thought. I don't think it's hypocritical to defend yourself. You didn't take that person's life if you killed them in self-defense. They chose to give it to you when they confronted you. I don't believe that to be a sin, Jean says. As an American, I believe in our Second Amendment right to defend ourselves. So I do conceal and carry. So there's somebody who has a thought to share on Facebook. And there are many others we hope to get to on today's program. But back to your calls. Kathy in San Antonio, Texas. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Thank you so much for calling, Kathy. How are you?
Yes. Hello?
Hi,
Hello, Kathy. Welcome.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Yep.
I'm pleased to see that you're doing this show. I had a couple of thoughts, and I every time I hear of someone who has died in an act of carelessness or what called an accident, it makes me sad. But also, I think that society today, because of our newspapers and that, they're afraid of guns. And I think that they should take advantage of things like NRA's Ed Eagle program that teaches children safety. The other thing is that everywhere that the guns are outlawed, the schools and the theaters and the churches become killing fields because nobody's there to protect them. Mm-hmm. They can't get a policeman there soon enough. And we never know who an intruder is going to be. The right to protect yourself is very, very important. I think that we neglect to look at how important that is, and your show is illustrating this, and I just really appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's... Go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to say one more thing. If you live in the rural areas and you are and guns are across the board taken away, you have no protection against snakes and bears or any other intruders.
Exactly.
Right.
And the other thing is that we have to face the fact that in the last 10, 15, 20 years, the world has changed. And very likely, there's going to come a day we're invaded. And the only people that are going to be there to stop them are the Minutemen of today.
Yeah, it's something that you're right. If you live in a rural area, it's not only bears and snakes, which in Texas you still have to worry about the snakes. Few bears, not too many, but some mountain lions, but not too many. Coyotes you have to worry about, but also the police cannot get to you on time. They cannot. It's hard enough for them to arrive on time to stop a crime in the cities where there are a lot of police. So this is something that you also have to deal with. A lot of times you are on your own, but you have to be very careful. And Jerry, I would just say something about to you too. In your earlier comment, you said sometimes you have to make a decision at the spur of the moment. Actually, one of the things about gun training is that you do go through and consider various scenarios of what may happen. And one of the things that you learn in gun training, for if you have concealed carry and all, is to have specific steps set up for what you do in that dangerous situation of somebody, say, breaking into your house. So that you shouldn't, just like our military trains itself for a wide variety of scenarios, so also should people who are considering the possibility of using self-defense in their own homes. They should practice what they do so that they know what steps to take, what they will do, and it becomes something that they are able to handle.
Father Mitch, you bring up a really, really good point. I'm glad that Kathy called in. Thank you so much, Kathy, for sharing your take on this, because one thing that is interesting, Father Mitch, is when my brother-in-law died, 6 years ago, I had so many friends say to me, "Oh, you must be so against guns now. Are you going to definitely get rid of the guns? And are you against guns because your brother-in-law was killed?" And my answer was absolutely not, because responsible legal ownership, like you said, Father Mitch, having a gun safe, going through all the scenarios, understanding how a gun works, using it for only self-defense. I mean, I was like, my goodness. I flippantly said this, Father Mitch, so maybe I need to go to confession, I don't know. But I flippantly said this, Father Mitch. I said, are we going to have knife control too? Because knives, when a knife kills a woman or is at the hands of a criminal, when he's raping a woman, we don't hear about that as much on the news. But at the moment a gun is used, Father Mitch, it's like all over the place.
Right. As a matter of fact, I was mugged at knife point back in 1970, and a passerby who saw it happening yelled out, "Stick 'em, stick 'em." In other words, telling the guy to go ahead and stab me, which he did not. But knives are obviously very dangerous. I was once attacked with 3 guys wielding a chain, and another one had a 2x4. They're swirling around now. Fortunately, I was able to catch the chain and make a couple suggestions that the guy not go any further with that activity. But sometimes you don't have that opportunity. So there are some people who have no sense of the respect of somebody else's life, and I hope I would. That's one of the last things I would ever want to be involved in, is taking somebody else's life. That including an aggressor's. But if somebody wants to and sees the need to do self-defense, they may do that. And the Pope said nothing about that. As a matter of fact, he has one of the best self-defense teams on his staff, namely the Swiss Guards. These guys are one of the best trained little armies in Europe, because they're very small, but they are there to protect everybody in the sovereign state of Vatican City. So, and the Pope has not disarmed them, because he is also well aware of the danger of terrorism that affects not only his own life and endangers him personally, but it also endangers the crowds that come there. And that is something that has to be dealt with as well. So the Pope has not spoken out against self-defense, and he uses the Swiss Guards. And yes, you have the guys ceremoniously dressed in the garb that Michelangelo designed for them, with halberds and such. But there are other guys with very good guns as well, protecting him and everybody else at Vatican City and Vatican State, because they are threatened. The terrorists have made it clear that they intend to attack not only him, but Vatican City and the people there. So that's why they have that.
Very good. Back to your calls. We're going to get to as many of you as we can. Janet has been holding oh so patiently in Eastern Oregon, La Grande, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hello, Janet. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hello, and God bless you all.
Thank you.
God bless you, Janet.
My husband is a firearms trainer for the state of Oregon, and we also own our own private training business for people that want to learn to protect themselves and with firearms. And one of the things he tells them is that in the state of Oregon, the perpetrator has to show the intent to commit harm to you. The willingness and the intent to commit harm towards you before you can shoot them. And he runs them through scenarios, and like somebody comes in your house, they're attacking you, it's dark, you fall over the couch, can you still defend yourself? And he teaches them how to do that. But I have a niece and nephew that were raised in Portland, Oregon. And Portland, Oregon is a very liberal part of Oregon. And the schools there push gun control. And my niece told my husband one time when they were little that, Uncle Mike, guns kill people. And he said, no, people kill people. He said, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And she argued and argued. So he sat both of them on the couch, went in my kitchen, got one of my kitchen knives, got a hunting knife out, put ammunition on the floor, put a rifle and a pistol, told him, he says, I'll be outside. Come out and let me know when any of those things get up and kill somebody. About 15 minutes later, my niece comes out and goes, okay, Uncle Mike, you're right. People kill people, not the weapons. And he goes, exactly. Well, we live on 820 acres in Eastern Oregon. I have 4 daughters. They all, when they're checking cows or just riding up on our hillside, they pack a pistol. They know how to use it. And like Father said, it is to protect themselves if a wolf, a coyote, a cougar, or a bear attack them. And it really bothers me when people think that if you put gun control into effect, like some of our celebrities that fight for it but yet have armed guards, that those criminals are not still going to get the guns. He works with law enforcement. Every gun that has ever been used has been obtained illegally by a criminal. And so we are not advocates for gun control. We're just advocates for tighter gun laws. Keep it out of the hands of criminals. Keep our government from giving it to the criminals like they have in the past.
Yep.
So,
Father Mitch,
right.
Your thoughts on that? We got about 2 or 3 minutes left here.
Yeah. Nothing to say. It's fine. Yep. No difficulty about that at all.
Yeah. Janet, thank you so much for the call. That was very well said, and I think you gave us a lot of food for thought, and thank you for making the time today to call in to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Do we have time to get to one more or no?
Yeah, let's very quickly.
Very quickly. Danny, we're going to go to you in Long Island, New York, listening on Sirius XM. Danny, unfortunately, we only have about 30 seconds. Can you make it brief?
Yes. Can you guys? Good afternoon, gentlemen. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi, Danny.
Good. My quick point, I'm listening to a lot of the conversation, and I understand the lady's point prior to mine, but had that individual in Newtown, Connecticut walked in with a knife, how much damage could have been done? I find it odd that people in a faith, Catholicism, and I was raised Catholic, and I have a lot of questions about the faith. I find it odd where killing is such a, you don't see much self-defense killing in the news, although it does occasionally happen. If you open up and you get the stats and records, you can see hundreds probably daily that are killed by guns. So it's funny to me to hear people defending gun use. I have plenty of friends in armed forces and military and even in the New York police department, and none of them carry guns all the time. So there is a path to living a functional life without being concerned and not carrying a gun.
All right, Danny, thanks for the call. Father, we got about 1 minute for you.
Right. In a lot of places that's true. But there are times for self-defense. And then you've heard other people say that advertising that a school or a church or any other institution is a gun-free zone then allows people who want to misuse guns, like at Newtown, to then say, okay, no one's going to stop me. And so one of the things that, because there are people who are unbalanced, as apparently that was the case there, then you have to be able to defend yourself and those around you. And that would be the guns are not all used for killing people. They're not. Again, many of us use them to hunt, and it's another discussion. But then to see that the role of self-defense is key in various circumstances. And a good example of that was when the representative from Arizona was shot. It was a man with a carrying permit in Arizona who stopped the shooter from doing more of the mass murder. So a lot of other people got shot, but it was a man with a gun in the parking lot at the mall who was able to stop him. It didn't shoot him, but just was able to bring him to a halt. That's the kind of thing that we're seeing in places like Texas, where more of that goes on.
All right, thank you, Danny, for the call, and all of the others. Wow, I wish we had 3 more hours to be with you. Father, could we get a quick blessing from you?
Lord bless you and keep you, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Debbie, your takeaway?
Amazing. Keep the conversation going. This is great. This is why we did Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, to explore every angle. Thank you, dear listeners. Sorry we couldn't get to everybody.
My takeaway is, we got to strike the balance. That's kind of the way with the Catholic Church. Thank you all for your calls. Tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, we're going to talk about how temptation is not sin. So often we get tempted and we think, oh, I've sinned. But we're going to talk about that tomorrow with your takes. Until then,
have a beautiful and blessed day.